G'day and welcome to DJF Live. This is episode 123, and on today's show we're taking a look at the Rodecaster video core that is rumored to be coming out. That was at CES 2026, so I'm excited to tap into that, and then we're also going to have a chance to answer some viewer questions. So as we go along, if you do have any questions, please do drop them in the chat, say hi, let me know where you're from around the world. It would be great to start a conversation with you, and if you have any questions about live streaming or video production, let me know, and we can try and answer them. But I've got a few that have been added in over YouTube over the last month. I've been kind of off a bit, so just wanted to answer some of those questions today. But let's kick off, and I wanted to start by just taking a sneak peek at the Rodecaster video core. There's not a huge amount of this on the internet. Aaron Parecki did a great sort of overview of that, so go find his video. And but there was also a bit of a video of this from CES, where, and I'm just going to scrub through this one, which is this type of device here, courtesy of Dominic Di Tiana, and there's Alex. G'day, Alex. So it's basically a box, and this excites me a lot because this is something I've wanted for a long time, and I'll sort of compare that to the ATEM Mini. But if you take a look at it's got vents on the sides and on the back, it's basically a Rodecaster Video S, the smaller version of what I've got here on my desk. And it connects into the audio interface here of a Rodecaster Pro 2 or the smaller versions. And from what I understand, it can actually route all of the audio channels from the core into the mixer, so you can actually do like a full mix rather than just sending a stereo pair. But essentially it turns if you've got a Rodecaster audio mixer on your desk, this means you can connect video into your podcasting without having to have an additional controller on the desk. So I'll just scrub forward to about back here. It's not great quality here, but you'll see the back side here is basically the same. I think there's a few minor differences as this one that we're looking at. So this one's out already, and I'm just gonna scroll into here. Basically this device without the buttons on top, and this is a $500 device, so I would imagine it would come in maybe a little bit cheaper given it doesn't have that interface. Where are we, the back side here? So still got these great audio inputs. It doesn't have the monitors out, but it's got headphones out, 3 inputs for HDMI, and you can still have NDI and UVC video inputs. So it's quite flexible, and I think this is a really great starting point for most people who are doing podcasting or live streaming, and it's an interesting comparison to the ATEM Mini, which is, you know, getting a little older now. This is my first one from back in 2020, 2021. I think it was 2020. I can't actually remember now. And I always found that the challenge with the ATEM Mini was predominantly the audio inputs. So I'll just pull in a bit tighter here. So the Rodecaster has better audio inputs. You'll see these jacks that we've got over this side, mini jacks. The software is so much better in the Rode. It's just like more modern and up to date, and has more usability and graphical, like you can move things around graphically rather than like doing little sliders on numbers. And then the inputs are much more flexible than the ATEM Mini. I'll come down to here if we want to sort of compare them like that. Just because the ATEM Mini really only has HDMI inputs, whereas the Rodecaster, you can mix between HDMI, NDI, and sort of like a webcam sort of input. So it just gives more flexibility if you want to bring in other random shots. You know, like I've got cameras over here that are running NDI, and they're, you know, these are the smaller OBSBOT tail air cameras that I have sort of around the studio to give different points of view. But it means that you can bring in alternative angles. Also from your phone even, you could get a sort of, I don't know if Rode has it or is other like NDI streaming apps. So from your phone, you could bring in over your network wirelessly another angle. And this is gonna be really great for B-roll in podcasts and that kind of stuff. But I did a video back in 2021, I think it was, where I built an ATEM mini rig. It's probably the best performing video on my channel. And basically in that, I wanted all of the functionality of an ATEM mini without any of the size and the mass, and I didn't need any of these buttons. And so that was really just trying to build something that could be portable and switched remotely. And what I find interesting about the core is I feel like that is starting to fulfill my dreams here of being, let's get a shot of it here. Where are we? Being this box. So just on the front, you've got just like a audio dial for the headphones and a USB on the front. And then a bit of, I don't know what that is, a bit of design there. I looked at this and I was like, great, this looks almost like you could put it into a 1U rack, except you cannot, because as I emailed Rode and they said they said, firstly, we're happy to hear you're excited, Rodecaster Video Core, we are too. Core is designed specifically as a desktop unit, so it won't be shipping with rack ears or other mounting solutions. That's what I asked them about, was like, you know, can you ship that with rack ears? Because it'd be great just to, that's a low cost rack ears, I would think, to be able to be like, hey, you can also mount this in your church in the back in a rack somewhere and it's out of the way and it doesn't need to be accessed. Anyway, so they said, but we may be exploring this concept in the future. So it's interesting, they're alluding to there may be some sort of rack mountable product. I don't know, maybe that would be slightly higher end. Maybe it's sort of more of the, I'm just speculating, the pro end, given that like rack mounting is usually a little more pro feature of people who don't just want like a consumer device on their desktop. They want something rack mountable out of the way. Maybe it's got, you know, more inputs like the Pro, the Rodecaster Video Pro does. But it's 45.5 millimeters tall. So the 1U, which is 1.7 inches, which is about 44.45 or something, it's like just a little bit too big to fit in a 1U rack. Not to say that you couldn't, like, I mean, you can obviously just get a shelf and like put it in a rack. So, you know, you can't not put it in a rack. It's just that it would be so nice to be able to, out of the box, screw it into a rack and you're done. You don't have to worry about, you know, locking things down. But it's under half a rack, so that's nice. Gives you half a rack for some other devices in a rack. What I'm excited about is, if I go to my full desk here, so I'm all about trying to like get rid of the desktop and clear this up. I got quite a few Stream Decks and a keyboard and all this sort of stuff here. But ideally it's, you know, not having this and the cables, and also as a node, like, you know, if it's sitting on your desk, then all of your camera cables have to come to your desk. And for small operations at desk, that's probably okay. But, you know, if you're building a podcast studio or sort of a corporate enterprise type space, then you may not want that out. You may not want it accessible. You may not want your average person to be able to just come up and touch buttons. You might just want it out of the way and have your control like more separated. And that is where very soon, I mean, you can already, but there's a few bugs in it being figured out. Using Companion, you'll be able to have a Stream Deck, or you'll be able to have a, let me just refresh this one, an iPad to basically have buttons that you can come in and control your whole setup with your Rodecaster remotely, so you don't have to think about all that. You know, and it just gives a lot more flexibility, and so that's what I'm really excited about. I will say one note that I was chatting to a producer here in New York who was saying that he's noticed with the Rodecaster Pro 2 that because there's no time code in it, there's a certain amount of drift across an hour, and he's spoken to Rode and they've like, think it's acceptable. But if you're doing longer form podcasts, it's maybe something to think about in terms of the Rodecaster Pro as your audio device, and then if you're trying to sync that up in post, are you stretching it out? And it gets a bit messy, and anyway, it'd be nice to see some sort of more time code capable version of the Rodecaster coming out. But that's the Rodecaster. So let me know what you think. If you are you excited to see that as well? Would love to hear what you're looking for in terms of a switcher in 2026. Does this meet the needs of what you're needing to do? Just because, I guess to back up to where it excels over the ATEM Mini Pro is, I mentioned the audio inputs are actual, proper preamps or balanced audio in rather than this like 3.5 millimeter jack. It's got more modern inputs in terms of HDMI as well as NDI plus the UVC sort of webcam input. But it's also got video playback in it, which is a huge thing to be able to just have that, like an ATEM's got a media pool, so you can have graphics, but to be able to play audio and video within the device and not having to like connect more devices in the back to, have a whole new computer just to route in some show audio and stuff. That would be good. I mean, even with this show at the moment, what I'm doing is my theme music is playing off a hyperdeck, which is way overkill. But what I like is that when I boot it up, I know that the hyperdeck is always going to route audio through. Like something like VLC, I have to go in and every time if it's been reopened, I have to reroute the audio. So if you don't do that, no audio in your show. So having audio and video playback in the device is really important as well. All right, let's move on, and we're going to take a look at some viewer questions. These are questions that have, or maybe comments that have come in over YouTube over the last month or so, and so I figured I would just take some time to answer them in this show. If you have any other questions, let me know as we go along. All right. Let me see. Whoop, there's a big one. Inspired by your video tutorials, he started making buttons. Sorry, this is a Ludwig 970. Started making buttons for the RCV and is having problems with the feedback on the video outs. And do I have any suggestions with that? You're not going crazy. This is one of the things that I came up against, and I've emailed Rode, and they have a developer who is working on the companion module, and I'm hoping that will be out soon. I can show you what we're looking at here. If I go back over, I'm just going to pull this up to here. Pull this screen up. So I guess what you're talking about is if you create a button for the video output, you can have HDMI, 1 or 2, USB or NDI. I'm going to use the USB, where are we? And then this is the feedback here for multi-view, and then I've got another one here for program, and I'm going to put this on my Stream Deck, so I'll bring this up on, where are we? I brought in this QuickTime player. All right, so this is my USB input coming into the Mac, and so when I switch between these, you can see it's switching between multi-view and the program feed on these two buttons. I got these on the Stream Deck down here, but the feedback here is not changing. So that's definitely a bug that needs to be worked out. So I would just say hold tight on that, and that will get fixed up in the next couple of weeks, I guess. Great video. Just curious to see how you connect up the extreme ISO for recording. Can you break down your connections for this, please? All right, so Alphavideoireland wants to know how is my extreme ISO set up for recording? Just to let you know, I've got a Constellation 2ME, which is my main machine here. I wonder if I can pull that up over here behind this screen. Ugh. Yeah, it's in the way. Anyway, down here, I've got a Constellation which is my 20 inputs and 12 outputs, and then further up in the rack, which you can't see, I've got the Extreme. And so the way I have set up my Extreme is really just as a video ISO recorder. So there's 8 channels that I can record in, and it, rather than having a whole bunch of hyperdecks, I've got one device which can do 8 HD recordings. So I basically went to, when I was building out that rack that you just saw, I just built a spreadsheet, and I was putting in my inputs and outputs. It's a bit, it's a bit messy, nothing special here. But basically my constellation has 20 inputs, and then I can label them, and then it's also got some outputs, and then I've got my Extreme SDI here, and then I've also got on this sort of front end is, I guess kind of like a patch panel on the front of my rack, so that with all of these SDI 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, these are sort of what's the input, I guess. So I've got sort of SDI through, and then I've got some other things like the deck link is coming back through, and the hyperdeck is coming back through. Okay, so I'll just skip over that bit. But in the way I've laid out my constellation is I've got sort of 3 camera inputs here for 2 PTZ cameras and a C200, which I've now sold. So I guess that's probably, well, it can't be an R5C because it's HDMI. These are all SDI inputs. And I've got a streaming bridge. I've got deck links 1 and 2, which I didn't really set up the way that I expected, but I do have deck link in 5 and 6 and in 9 and 10. And then I've got my ATEM Extreme multi-view return. So that is a, where is that output here? This is a bit messy. So the output, I can probably, I don't know why I put it down there. I think because I was trying to like route it back this way. So the output of the ATEM Extreme has got 4 outputs, and I've got basically 1 SDI, which is coming out of one of the 4 outputs back into the constellation, so that in my constellation, I can have a look, where are we, ATEM, and I need to go to routing. Let me just go program, input, and multi-view. Can I do that? Down to multi-view, whoop, that's 1 and 2. So you can see in my multi-view, where is that? One of these 2. Is that one? No, it's not this one. Okay. You can see in the sort of top right, 1 box down is actually my Extreme. No, that's a web presenter. What am I looking at? I haven't routed it in. Anyway, but it is routed in, so I can, in my multi-view, I can keep an eye on my what's going on in the Extreme just through my constellation multi-view is how that works. All right, let's come back here. All right. So let me just come back to this page here. So that's the multi-view return. So this is receiving a signal from the Extreme, getting a multi-view signal in. Web presenter monitor is coming in, so being able to monitor my web presenter, that's also coming as an input. Not that I'm like sending that out to program, but I can place that within my multi-viewer to be able to see it. And then I've got basically 6 HDMI in, so these are converters where HDMI one side converting it to SDI. And so that enables me to bring in my Mac, which is this desktop that you're looking at, is my 16-inch MacBook. I've got a NDI converter for the tail cameras, so that's taking an NDI signal from the camera, converting it to HDMI is the one that I have. Ideally just be SDI, but I had a HDMI, and so it's going HDMI, converting it to SDI, then going into the constellation. Apple TV coming in, so I can do some, Mac OS screen sharing and stuff like that. And then I've got my Mac Mini has 3 HDMI outputs so that I can view things. So I have a sort of screen in my teleprompter that has got clock and stuff like that and sort of what's coming up next, so I can sort of keep track of the show. And then the third one here is actually an NDI viewer. Let me just go over to, where is that gone? Over here, I'll bring this over. This is the Mac Mini, which has this one, NDI video monitor, and that is, I wonder if this will mess it up. This one, so this is the camera at the back is sending a video NDI signal, and then I am pulling that out of the Mac Mini, and the Mac Mini is full screening in that to one of the inputs so that I have a NDI input. So it's kind of like a makeshift NDI input. Let's just go, I think I need to go a bit mid-shot, a bit wider on that one. There we go. All right, back to this one, and I will go back to my display here because it gets a bit window within windows. Okay, so that's, and then I've got Hyperdeck key and fill, and I got my multi-view, which is hard patched back into itself so that I can send it different places. So that means now with the Constellation 2ME, I've actually got 12 outputs, and the first 8 of them, I'm just directly patching to the inputs on the extreme ISO, so I can send any variation of input that I want into that. It doesn't all have to be like program. And then my 9, 10, 11, 12 are basically outputs that I'm using either to, so 9 is going to the web presenter, which is what's going to air, and 10 is, what's this, confidence HDMI, so that's going back through the SDI to HDMI converter, and then I've got a monitor in front of me here for confidence, and which I can probably show you down here. So I've got a confidence monitor here. I've got a teleprompter monitor, which I've got program going into, I think. Yeah, program going into the teleprompter, so I can get a clear picture of what's actually going on the screen, going to air. And then above me, which I can't quite show you, I don't think, is another like floor monitor, which has the alternative multi-view. So I've got 2 multi-views that I can look at. The one that I use in front of me here is more of like, this is my clocks and what's coming up next, and then there's like a program, and then there's all my camera sources. Whereas the one up above is more of a utility screen, which I don't think I've clearly not set up properly, because it normally would have the extreme in it, but I need to have a look at that. So that's basically how I just sort of, really just in a spreadsheet, align my Constellation outputs with my ATEM SDI Extreme. And so then I can, in Companion or in, let's see if we can open up this one. Not sure if I've updated this recently. Just assign it to different, the outputs to different sources. So I'm recording on channel 1, I'm recording my program, and then 2 is camera 1, 3 is camera 2. I've got the NDI tail, so I've got like 1 camera here, and then I've got my desktop. I've got my M1 is it's my M1 Mac Mini, so it's another screen desktop share. Multi-view is getting a multi-view source, and then a super source, just in case I ever come to like editing and I want to quickly chop these things up, or maybe want to have a super source that's just there that I can drop in during an edit. And did this one open up? Let me just have a look. Oh, it's over here. Wrong screen. All right, so then in my ATEM software control outputs, you can see here or down at this icon, you can come to sources. And it's really good to label all these just to keep everything organized in your head and match it up to your spreadsheet. So I was outputting something and needed clean names, so I've written over the top of these. These would normally have better names, but I would normally give it something like this, like the number of the channel number and some sort of name just to keep track of which input it is. And then, you know, M16 is my MacBook 16-inch. Just things that you're going to know off the top of your head, so that when you come in here, you can actually see these names. You know, Hyperdeck key 1. Hyperdeck, it is Hyperdeck, right? HD, yeah. And then under outputs, you can put output 1 could be getting, at the moment, it's getting programs. So that's another way of just like quickly routing that, or else you could go into Companion and route the windows that way, or the sources that way under auxiliary. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, I think I can pull it up. Under hero, here we go. It's not quite on the screen. I'll just do it on this one. So in my profile, the way that I've got this laid out, this will be out soon, is I can go to my auxiliary. So I've got, you know, 12 available. You could have like 48 on a 4ME 4K plus, whatever. So I've got 12 options, so I can just select which output I want to route, and then I can go to input, and then I can select the source of, you know, I want to send, you know, whatever it is, camera 2 to line, so at the moment I've got program here, sorry, that's a tally. And I can just change it that way, which I won't because I'm recording. But that is, hopefully makes sense. And hopefully that answered the question. Let me have a look here. What's next? All right, so next up. I just discovered step progression expressions. Nice feature. Had to be using this every 2 seconds interval trigger to monitor variable values, but to change button steps. But this is much better. Thanks for the overview. I did a video on that, which you can go back and have a look at from a couple of episodes back. But it is a good reminder just that you can lay out buttons in Companion that aren't just like actioning something or toggling, that can have a lot more control. So in my ATEM profile, I can basically select ATEMs 1, 2, or 3 like that, and then it's selecting different ATEMs. It's changing a custom variable in these buttons here, and then it means that all these other buttons can stay the same, but they go to different places. So rather than, you know, when I hit aux1, this is going to control ATEM 1, but if I've hit ATEM 2, I can hit the same aux1 button, and now I can see I'm controlling the extreme, which is, you know, giving me different results. And so it just means you can layer your buttons up more easily. What that looks like on the, let's go over here, on the Companion end. Where did I go? I had a little button here, ATEM 1. It's basically, you create a button, and then you could call it ATEM, and you need to create a custom variable. I already have one called custom ATEM. And so you can see that the value of that is 1, ATEM 1. I'll just make that smaller. And then rather than, this is what we're talking about here, step progression, you can have auto, so just if you've got multiple steps, it'll automatically step through it manually. So you actually like tell it to go to one step and it stays there until it's put somewhere else, or else, but remember that when you reboot Companion, it's always gonna start at step 1. So you can't leave it at step 4 and then reboot and expect it to still be at 4. Or expression, so, you know, this is step 1, I can add here, and I've got now a second tab, or a second step, and I've got a third step, and this can be my custom ATEM 1, 2, and 3, and so now I could put in, you know, something here to like program, set the input on ATEM 1, and then I could do ATEM 2 and ATEM 3. So get the idea that you're sort of like creating this across layers, And step 1 here is flashing, and so that's what's going to action. But if I go to my ATEM, and I'm just going to switch, I don't have any buttons here to show you, but I'm just switching the variable on my button here. If I select ATEM 2, you can see now that is highlighted. And if I select ATEM 3, now this step is highlighted. So for example, I've selected ATEM 3, and now it's saying send me to step whatever this equals, which equals 3. And it's going to action these actions, and I've set this to ATEM 3. So that's the way I can sort of layer up control of 3 different ATEMs and just have a, let me go over to here and show you these buttons, and then just have buttons that are basically saying change that variable to a number, 1, 2, 3, that kind of stuff. So that's how that one works. All right, let's moving along. What do we got here? Can you bring SmartVideoBE says, can you bring satellite to Raspberry Pi Zero? I haven't tested this, so I can't like step you through it, but I believe so. So if you're looking to do this, then it is something that you can do. If you're also wondering why you would do that, it's basically setting up like a network adapter so that you can, rather than having a computer somewhere, like if you want to install a Stream Deck in a wall, you could have the Stream Deck in a plate in a wall with the buttons, and then it's connected to a companion satellite, which is converting that USB interface to a network interface that can send an Ethernet, signal back to your companion installation. I think I can explain it via here. Let me have a look. Like this. Let me just go. All right, so this is the network setup. We're sitting at a desk, we have a Stream Deck, and we connect it via USB to a laptop on that or Mac Mini or a Windows computer or Linux or Raspberry Pi or whatever it is, but it's a computer that is running Companion, and that is going to be our hub that is going to tell keystrokes on a Stream Deck or an iPad what equipment to control. Then if you want to get more fancy, or you've got like a second person, you could connect via a switch, or I guess over Wi-Fi, but ideally over a switch and Ethernet, have a second workstation, and you could control some apps on that computer, and that second operator, like a video playback operator, could also have a Stream Deck plugged into their computer, but instead of running 2 instances of Companion and getting out of sync and trying to like keep libraries up to date, you just have one Companion instance on the original machine, and then you use Companion satellite to connect back to your original server, which is your database and what's actioning everything. And so this is where you can see the question here makes sense, because do you necessarily want a whole computer to just run this Stream Deck XL? And you can actually run a companion satellite on a Raspberry Pi Zero, I think. Again, haven't tried it, but I believe, and this is what's happening is you press a Stream Deck button, it's on the companion satellite, sending a command back to the companion server. And this is kind of the way that I have my setup here. I've just got like my presenter desk here with a computer, and I don't actually have Companion on my computer here. It's actually in my live streaming rack in a Mac Mini, and it's always on, so I just always have access to that. And my physical Stream Decks that are on this desk are connected into my local computer, but Companion Satellite is redirecting them to the other installation there. All right, where am I? Got to get a button here. Next one, which is sort of related, from Blackbeard5736, thanks for the question, which is how do I connect using a VPN? Can you please elaborate? This was in relation to a Companion Satellite. Oh, I meant to say, on that previous question, if I go back to, sorry, I'm just going to jumping around a bit here. But I forgot to say the Elgato network dock, I think that's that right, is $70, 70, $80. This does the same thing. So this is PoE into your network, and it can sit inside of a Stream Deck, and you've got USB out. So from your network, it's setting power and connectivity to the Ethernet port, and then that USB port is powering the Stream Deck. And this is $76 and it's out of the box. So I would probably recommend just doing that, you know, rather than getting a Raspberry Pi. I mean, if you have a Raspberry Pi, just, you know, go ahead and do it. But if you're starting from scratch, maybe not get a Raspberry Pi, because that's, I don't know, 30 to 50 bucks, and then you probably still need to power it, and you're going to get a PoE hat, or, you know, it could be more expensive, and you may not need to do that. So something like the network stream dock, network dock for Stream Deck is the same principle, which will, under your surfaces, you'll see remote, and it'll pop up here. So I've got some Stream Deck Studios that I haven't actually connected here, but it'll pop up as a network device that you can just go add Stream Deck, and then you can jump into your surfaces and configure this one, and configure it like that, like you would any other surface that's plugged in directly over USB. But let's go back to the question about setting up a VPN, because I was sort of alluding to it here, which is if you're not in your studio, if you're remote, how do you run your studio remotely? And so basically you're going to connect over the internet, and you need to VPN into your local environment so that you're essentially back on your local network. And then I would use something like, you know, I'm using Macs, and there's an inbuilt screen sharing app, and it can show you the computer screen of that. Also, just bring up the web browser. So I'm doing that at the moment here. So when I go home and I want to connect back to this studio, I will open up screen sharing, and you can see I've got 192.168.7.11, which is my local environment here. I'm connected over here, so I'll just bring this over. But it just opens up my Mac Mini, and then I can come in here and actually do stuff in apps in a local environment. But as long as you're connected via VPN, you can just connect over the network. So you can I can just go to this usual address, and it will show up. In terms of how to set up a VPN, there's probably better videos out there that will be able to explain it better than I could. I went the route of basically getting Unify Ubiquity gear, because within it is a very easy option for teleport, which is like one switch, which I think I can show that somewhere. Let me just see if I can bring that up without giving away the house. View. I gotta show. Where are we? Okay. Let me just come into here. All right, so in my Unify here, if you just come into settings, I go VPN, and then there's this option called teleport, and I check this box, and you can generate a guest invite, and it will then on like a Wi-Fi man, ugh, can't even do it. I think I've got it. Wi-Fi man, yeah. Let's open that up. Allow. Okay, this is gonna go too hard with settings because I'm not quite set up for that. But on your remote computer, open up Wi-Fi man. You can accept the invite code, and then I can basically go to like VPN and connect to it. I've also got here I've created a shortcut where I can toggle my VPN in the shortcuts. I'm not going to go into that now, it's probably a bit more detailed, but know that you can create shortcuts that will trigger to open your VPN, so it's very easy to get back into your studio environment. And then I just went the route of setting up that on Unify. So it's probably not helpful if you don't have Unify gear, but you can get some of their routers fairly cheaply. Let me just have a look who we've got here. Let me go back to here. We've got Martin who says, as a purchaser of your ATEM Extreme ISO with PTZ, I've noticed the camera zoom in-out functionality no longer works properly. It's become very slow since updating my companion version. Is there a fix for that issue? It shouldn't be. I'm trying to think why that would be. I wonder if that could be just when you, let me go over to, again, I'm not really set up for this, I'm set up for the Rodecaster. Let me go to PTZ, camera 2, I think we're on. So by default, it's sort of, this is sort of the speed when you boot up. You should be able to just hit like fast, and then it'll be like much faster. And then one more time is slow, so it'll be, yeah, like much slower. It may have shifted. I'll have a look at that because maybe some of the parameters in Canon in terms of what they scale is like slow, medium, fast might have changed. Because that's moving, but that is slower than I had intended. So I'll have a look. Maybe but that might not be an actual companion thing. That might be, I wonder if that's like a Canon firmware in terms of how they gauge that. Let me have a look. But I'll take a look and I'll see if that can be sped up, or just like, you know, you want a fast, medium, slow because you want to be able to change up what you're doing with that. Walter, great to see you again live. I'm joining from Denver Airport, normally in Amsterdam. Great to have you here. And it's not the pans. It is not the pans, says Martin. It is not the pans. It might be coming in. It's a zoom in and out. Oh, a zoom in and out. Okay. Let me get a look again. Where are we? Back here. To PTZ. In and out. Zip. So fast. Slow. That should be good. And then medium. It's working. It's working for me the way that I would anticipate it. Shoot me an email and I'll see if your setup is, I don't know what would be different about that, but we'll figure that out. Okay. Where's my button? Here I am. Okay. I am in the process of very close to bringing a version 5 of DJF live. I have a new website that's going to house all of the live streaming and companion profiles that I offer. It's going to be djflive.com, so it's live now, and I'm in the process of like cleaning up some of the pages. So keep that in mind. But a lot of this live stream is going to stay where it is, and we're going to do the same thing, talking about live streaming and video production, all that kind of stuff. But just I've wanted to get my davidjoshuaford.com portfolio site back to, you know, filmmaking, production, photography, that kind of stuff. So me as a director is going to be davidjoshuaford.com, and then DJF Live is going to be all the live stream stuff that we're doing here. So if you're looking for products to download and that kind of stuff, that is where that is going to live. I'll do a proper like launch at some point once it's all sort of cleaned up. But at the moment, everything has migrated over there, and that's where you can go to download profiles and to get the paid ones as well. But I'm very excited with the PTZ and the ATEM profiles that I've been working on very hard for like 4 months, 5 months, I don't know. There's a bit of a break in there over Christmas, but it was a lot of work to try and just like get a next version of this console up and going to make it easier to run and more functions and that kind of stuff. So I am looking forward to that. That's all we have for today. David Joshua Ford, oh, I gotta update that link. DJFlive.com is where you can go. I'll update this graphic for next week to get the profiles. And until next week, take care, and I'll see you then.